Alrighty guys, hello and welcome back to another Supreme Commander Science video. So today we're going to be talking about build power in Forged Alliance Forever. What prompted this video was actually one of my more recent casts on Setton's Clutch. I'm going to drop the link down in the description, and if you guys haven't seen it yet, then maybe go check that out, because there are going to be some spoilers in this video about how that game actually turned out. So I'll give you guys like 3 or 4 seconds to actually click over to that video. All right, great. If you're still here, then you have signed yourself on to the fate of spoilers. Or you guys have already seen the cast itself. It was a good cast. I really enjoyed it. But anyway, in that game, there was a Yolona OS that got built, which is the Seraphim T4 experimental nuclear missile launcher. So that kind of prompted the question in my mind as I was watching the game. Everybody on the other team had a strategic missile defense, but that prompted the question in my mind where if you have a Yolona OS that's being built on the team, how much assistance would you have to give an SMD in order to actually match the Yolona OS's production to entirely mitigate it? So we've all seen it, right? Like a Yolona is getting built on the enemy team, and if you're like me, you're terrible at scouting. So by the time you scout it, the Yolona is basically done, or it's very, very close to done. And then ensues the obligatory scramble of all engineers and build power to assist strategic missile defense to make sure you have as many counter nukes in the tube as possible by the time that thing goes live. But this is assuming you've already built an SMD because you're a pro, right? You're definitely not like me, where there aren't countless games where you've forgotten to build a strategic missile defense and then get nuked into oblivion because you're an idiot. But is that actually what you should be doing whenever you actually scout a Yolona OS on the team? So some of the conclusions from this video that I found led me to ask if this was something that held true for other applications of build power assistance. So we're going to get into a couple of other things outside of just assisting strategic missile defenses. So let's go ahead and get into it, and we'll roll the intro. Okay, question 1. How much do you have to assist a strategic missile defense system to keep up with the Yolona OS? So the first observation that I actually made on this is that SMDs, nuke launchers, and Yolonas all have variable times that they build their payloads. It should be noted that these were observed measurements, and I'm not sure if I got the highest or the lowest ranges, mostly because I don't have time to watch this for hours and measure. But regardless, though, the fact that there is variation is important, and not what the standard deviation is. So to put this in perspective, the variation on an SMD ranges from about 4 minutes and 10 seconds for a payload to get loaded without any assistance to about 4 minutes and 18 seconds. For Yolona, it's slightly over a minute, ranging from about 1 minute to 1 minute and 8 seconds. So if you don't assist either of these systems, there is going to be a little bit of a variation in how long the payload actually takes to load. With more assistance and the more build power you actually throw at it, the lower or the narrower that standard deviation actually becomes. But to be safe, we're going to be measuring one data point from an SMD and one data point from a Yolona. So the SMD will take the average and put it at 414 to start off at, and for the Yolona, we'll put it at 1 minute to illustrate kind of the worst case scenario. So to be safe, you're going to need an SMD creating a countermeasure every 30 seconds using my measurements to be sure you have enough countermeasures every time a Yolona fires. So the Yolona payload takes 2 traditional SMD countermeasures to actually block the Yolona payload. So you're going to need one every 30 seconds. So if a Yolona is firing once every minute, you're going to need 2 SMD countermeasures just to make sure we're all on the same page. So to measure this, we started with engineers. I started with T3 engineers to actually measure how the time to create a SMD countermeasure actually drops. But then we went to kennels, and we built a lot of kennels, and maybe I need to be more specific here. More kennels than you should ever build in a game. 258 of them, to be exact. So to get an SMD to a point where it is creating a countermeasure every 30 seconds, you need 258 kennels. So the reason I'm using kennels just as an illustration here, but a kennel has 2 drones in it. Each drone has a 25 build power, so a little bit less than a T3 engineer, clocking in at 30 build power. So each T3 kennel has 2 of those drones, which means that each one is worth roughly 50 build power. On flat, it's hard to get a sense of the scale that is required to build this. But to put it in perspective, it's roughly 16 T3 power generators. Now, I don't know about you, but I have trouble planning my base around T3 power, period, much less around 16 of them stacked on top of each other in a build range of 1 building. So I use cheating to get them to stack on top of each other for testing purposes. This is really handy if you load into a FAF game and enable cheating and then go into the cheating menu, you can create like 100 power generators that only take a 4x4 space. But you need that many kennels, and yeah, I might have forgotten this earlier, but they need to be upgraded to tier 3. Otherwise you need, what's 258 times 2? What is that? 516. You need 516 tier 2 kennels to accomplish the same result. So, whoops. The problem with increasing the build power on the SMD and why we needed so many actual kennels is that it diminishes the overall effect. Diminishes the more build power you add actually to assist it. So people that have been around the scene for a while might know this. I actually didn't know this, which is why I'm making a video about it, is because I'm relatively new to the scene. Like I've only been playing Supreme Commander Forged Alliance Forever seriously for about probably a little over a year now. Before that, I played Supreme Commander Vanilla and Forged Alliance Vanilla, but it was always multiplayer games with my dad. This is the first time over the last year that I've actually gotten into Forged Alliance Forever and started taking it seriously. But so for newer people that might be in the same shoes as me, I actually didn't know this, which is why I'm making this video. But as you add build power to assist an SMD, the effect gradually diminishes, and I'll throw a graph up on the screen to illustrate this. But to the point where you need roughly 100 upgraded kennels to get an appreciable difference in build time. You have to throw thousands of build power at one application, and this doesn't even take into account all of the other things that you might be doing with your build power in a game, like building units or upgrading other things like your commander to do a tele snipe or something like that, because you're like me and you're a Cybern player. But going kind of through this, you need to throw a lot of build power actually at this particular application to get an appreciable difference. And to illustrate this, if you use one engineer to assist, it drops the build time from roughly 4 minutes and 14 seconds to about 4 minutes and 6 seconds. So if you add one engineer, you get an 8-second decrease in build time. To get that same result, whenever I was trying to get from about 38 seconds down to, I think my final measurement was like 29.6 seconds, I used 100 kennels to get to that point. So I had to throw a 5,000 build power at an SMD to get it from 38 seconds all the way down to just under 30 seconds, which was our butter zone. So there's a huge amount of diminishing return. Now, I'm not a huge math guy, which might actually surprise you guys, considering I do these Supreme Commander Science videos and actually get into the math. I was a business major and took business calculus, and I think on the first test I got a 26, which was one of the lowest grades I think I ever got all through college. So if you guys want I did not go through the process of actually building out an equation to illustrate what this actually looks like. But if you guys would like my data set to use to build an equation, hit me up on Discord. It's my Discord handle is going to be down in the description below. And if you guys want to build an equation off of that data set, more than happy to share it. But I wanted to illustrate really the diminishing returns of assisting an SMD to crank out payloads faster. So if we look at this, the alternative then is building a ton of SMDs, right? So it turns out that building this many kennels to fulfill the requirements here costs roughly 129,000 mass. That sounds like a large number. To put that into perspective, that's almost 2 Dukes of mass that you're throwing into just build power to mitigate a Yolona. But building enough SMDs to counteract it, so you need roughly 8 SMDs to counteract this. Call it 9 to be safe, but that roughly costs about 70,000 mass to build this in SMDs. So instead of actually assisting one SMD, you're going to be much better off building additional SMDs to counteract the Yolona. Realistically, though, if we take a step back, we are so far into the theoretical here. Like, nobody's ever going to build 258 kennels, and you're probably not going to build 9 SMDs either. So realistically, if there's a Yolona on the map, it's going to be very costly to defend against it, and you're better off trying to destroy it than trying to stop the missiles. So I recommend strat snipe. I'm not sure. But this leads me to question 2. So after my observations on build power assisting strategic missile defense, this led me to ask the question if the same principles apply to assisting factories. So in all of my searching, I couldn't find a build power requirement for SMD countermeasures. I'm sure they're hidden somewhere in the Forge Alliance Forever engine, but regular units cost a certain amount of build power, and that's listed in the FAF database. So we should be able to construct enough kennels to instantly construct a unit, meaning that the only limiting factor that you have would be walk-off time from the factory floor and the resources available. So let's take a Percival, for example. It takes 4,800 build power, which is a nice round number. And subtracting the factory build power of 90, we need about 94.2 upgraded kennels to quote-unquote instantly build a Percival. So this is still an obscene number. We're going to round up to 93 just to make sure that it's consistent. But I actually don't see the same regression here or the same diminishing returns that we do in the SMD. So the drones do take a couple of seconds to actually lock on, but after that, the unit builds essentially instantly. Is this efficient? No, it's not efficient. You need about 93 factories to equal this build power, costing about 5220 mass each, so 5,220 mass each. So yeah, again, doing real quick math, it's going to be way cheaper to build kennels than it is to build 93 T3 factories. So again, all this is like purely in a theoretical world where you have unlimited space and the time to build either a stupid amount of factories or a stupid amount of kennels, and you have to have the need to build a Percival roughly every 1 second. But this does illustrate that the drop off for build power when construction units are assisting an SMD is much higher, and it exists, and it does not appear to exist whenever you're actually using them to assist the factory. So let's go ahead and wrap this up. I think what I'm trying to say here is build a lot of SMDs or scout. Maybe I'm trying to tell you guys to scout. Maybe I'm trying to tell you guys to scout and see if there is a Yolona being built and just kill the Yolona instead of just waiting for it to be built and then building 9 SMDs, or just win before your opponent can get to the Yolona. It's almost like it's a game ender unit or something like that. But also, assisting factories is worth it, and you're not sacrificing build power to do that. So after all that is said and done, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Am I way off base? You guys do a really good job of keeping me honest in these science videos, and I try and pin comments that illustrate areas where I just completely miss the boat in these videos. I do try and be as thorough as I possibly can be, but it's always good having multiple sets of eyes on this kind of subject, and I'm very lucky to have a subscriber base and people that actually watch my videos and care about them. So let me know down in the comments below if I'm missing something or if I've completely missed the boat. You guys do a pretty good job of that. This video took me absolutely forever to make. I spent hours watching strategic missile defense missiles getting built and then measuring the actual time. So if you guys are bored, I can highly recommend the show Startup on Netflix. But that's assuming you haven't watched all of the videos on my channel. If you haven't watched all the videos on my channel, you should absolutely go and watch all the videos on my channel. Probably the biggest priority would be watching the cast that's linked in the description below that kind of prompted this whole question and this whole big science endeavor. But all that being said, I really hope you guys enjoyed this and learned something. I know I sure as hell learned a ton of stuff while I was making this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.